Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us on our special Halloween Spooktacular live training webinar. Let's go ahead and kick things off. My name is Siobhan, and I'm a professional services specialist here at Accelo. I was previously a client of Accelo, and I've been right where you are attending these sessions. I fell in love with the software and what it can do for service businesses looking to streamline how they manage client work. So I'm looking forward to co-hosting this Accelo live training webinar, and we hope it will contain some useful information for all of our clients who have joined us here today. On today's webinar, I'm joined by Space Cadet Dave, who is a Professional Services Enablement Manager. And Dave's been doing client implementation for over 4 years now, and he has 6 years prior project management experience. So in case you hadn't noticed, he also never misses a chance to dress up and is a recent graduate of Accelo's space program. He's got some real world experience to bring to the table today. With that being said, we wanted to be upfront with you all about the content, just in case you were expecting something a little bit different. Today, we're focusing on wicked triggers and automations used by support and help desk teams. And these tricky triggers exist to empower fang-tastic customer service and fast SLA response times within Accelo's tickets product. We're going to cover fabulous first response timestamp triggers, Enchanting formula for time to first response, a Devilish 24-hour new unattended ticket triggers, and a haunting special process, adding an account manager. On top of that, we wanted to quickly touch upon the recommended user experience level for getting the most out of today. Today's session is advanced. We believe it will be most impactful for folks who've been using Accelo for 12 or more months after your implementation go-live date. If you have any questions along the way, please add them into the Zoom Q&A feature that's built into the bottom panel of the application. This is different from the chat feature. So to make sure your questions are on our radar to be answered, post them in the Q&A feature. We will try to answer all questions during the live Q&A at the end. However, if we're unable to, don't worry, because we'll respond to every question after the session. All right, let's jump right into it. So today, we're talking about things from the perspective of Kelly Kapoor, who's the customer service representative at the Scranton branch of Dunder Mifflin. She believes timely responses contribute to a positive customer experience. And she's also interested in knowing how long it takes her to first respond to a client. She's eager to capture this insightful data in Accelo to help with decision-making for process improvement and department growth. Dave, it sounds like Kelly is going to benefit by setting up a first response timestamp. Can you take us through how to set this up in Accelo?
Yeah, hey there, everyone. Thanks for having me today. To add a timestamp on the ticket when your staff's first email goes out, we'll need to add in a new custom field and a new trigger. Let's add in the new custom field first. For this, we'll want to go to the ticket type settings. So we'll go to the configuration settings down at the bottom. We'll open up the tickets menu. And then we'll go to that last option, types, progressions, and fields. Once you have the ticket type that you want this field for picked out, we can go up to the top and go to the custom fields tab here to add in a new field. So let's add a new field in, and we'll call this one first response timestamp. The type of field we're going to use here is a date and time field. We want to be able to see the exact date and time that first response goes out. That's all we really need to do to add in the field. So let's go in now and add in a new trigger. So I'll go back up to the top to the triggers tab right next to the custom fields tab there. and we'll go in, add new trigger. Let's call this one first response timestamp again. And for our first option, we'll want to pick out the event trigger option. This is a trigger that requires an activity in Accelo to occur before checking the rules. So unlike an ongoing trigger that will constantly be checking the rules in the background, we can set this one up to only check the rules when the staff sends an email. So we'll want to pick staff for the activity created by option here. And down here in the activity type, we'll choose email. So with these settings, we'll only be looking at for outgoing emails to clients rather than any internal notes or communications. For a lot of people on the call, this might be all of the updates required on this first part of the trigger. It only needs to fire once for each ticket, and we really want it to fire anytime or any day of the week. But I do want to give an additional tip for a field that you might want to set if you have any automated emails or auto replies going out from your ticket. So since the automated replies in Accelo do technically go out from a staff member, we wouldn't want that to accidentally set our first response timestamp. So if you have an automated email that goes out, I would suggest making sure you have some keywords in your auto responses subject or body, like the words automated response new ticket. Then in our trigger, we can set it to filter out and ignore any emails that have that in the subject. So to do that, under the subject option here, we can set this to doesn't contain, and then we can put in our keywords. Let's put in automatic response new ticket. This will ensure that only emails with a different subject will apply to this trigger. So that's all we really need on this first page. So let's move on to the rules. For the rules, we can keep these pretty simple here, and we really just need to include a status rule. We want to make sure this trigger fires for any of your open ticket statuses, but we probably don't need to include it for tickets that we close right away. So let's use the options ticket field, pick the status out, and then we'll use is not one of and pick that closed ticket status. So this will basically fire for any ticket that isn't closed already. We don't really need any other rules for this trigger. So let's move on to the actions. For the actions, we're going to want to use the update field option. And then we'll find that new first timestamp field that we created. So we'll look under the fields and pick out that first response timestamp. And then we'll also want to set this default value to today. Saving that field will have the trigger set that first response timestamp to the date and time that the trigger fires. So we can just save this trigger now, and we'll turn it on. And so to recap on this setup, when your staff sends that first email back to the client, we'll save that date and time and display it as a field on the left-hand side of the ticket.
Okay, cool. Step one complete. The other thing we talked about was being able to easily see how long it takes Kelly to respond to clients. So now that we've captured that timestamp, how can we use this to capture the time it takes her to first respond to clients?
Yeah, we can add in another field for that. In Accelo, we'll add in a formula field to calculate the actual amount of time between when the ticket was first submitted and the new first response timestamp field we created. Let's go back into the custom fields on the types, and we'll add in a new field. So I'll go back over one tab there, and we'll go to new custom field again. Let's call this one time to first response. Oops. And for this one, we're going to make it a formula field. You'll see there's a couple different types of formula fields. For this one, we're going to use a formula time field. This will give us the time down to the minute, opposed to if maybe we used a formula number field that would give us the time as a rounded number of days. So since we want to be a little more specific, let's get the formula time field option. And then we can hit create formula to add in our equation. We don't need to worry about any if else statements here. We essentially always want this field to have the same value in it. We'll want to set up the equation here to subtract the submitted date from the first response timestamp. When you're subtracting date fields in these equations, you want to always begin with the most recent date and subtract the older date. So let's begin with adding in that first response field. We can go down to append here and pick set. Then we'll want to pick our field option and pick out that first response timestamp. We don't want to pick the today if empty option, because if we haven't responded yet, we don't want this field to have any value set yet. So let's hit append to add it into the equation. And then we can go in and add the submitted date. So let's go append again and add the minus sign. Then we can pick out the field and grab our submitted date there. Once we add that to the equation, that's all we need to do for this field, and we can go ahead and hit save. Now with this field added, we'll be able to see how long it took the email to the client down to the minute as an additional field on the left-hand side of that ticket.
Thanks, Dave. Now, before we show the audience these timestamp and formula fields on a live ticket, I want to make sure everyone is aware of a ticket type setting that can change the behavior of the submitted date field. This field is a key part of that equation, and this setting allows you to have this date field work the best way for your business. Would you please show us this nifty setting?
Yeah, good call. This setting is a default on the ticket type. So let's go to the edit option at the top of the type here. In the type defaults, you'll see in the middle, there's a dates section here. And this first option is submitted date defaults to. This setting will let us choose if the submitted date in Accelo gets set as either the date of the first activity or the date that the ticket was created. So setting this to the first activity option will set the submitted date to when your client originally reached out via email. Using that ticket created option would set the submitted date to when you actually convert that email to a ticket, which might be sometime after the email came in. So this setting is particularly important to consider for those of you that are converting emails and requests into tickets. So since we want to see the amount of time it took us to respond to the client's original email that came in, we'll go with the first activity option here. Save that type.
Amazing. Now let's see these fields and triggers in action.
All right, so to show these fields in action, all we need to do is open up a new ticket and send an email to the ticket contact. I'll just open up a ticket that was submitted earlier today from Bob Vance of Vance Refrigeration. If any of you are fans of The Office, you might remember that that's Phyllis's husband and they work in the same building. So Vance wrote in earlier, he was missing some paper from his last shipment. Once we've sent our first reply and that event trigger fires, we'll see those fields on the bottom left-hand side of the ticket here under additional details. Since we haven't sent any emails out on this ticket yet, we'll see we don't have anything filled in here. But let's go in and add a new email and we'll see those fields fill in. So we can go at the top here and we'll go to add activity, send email. This will pop up an email pre-addressed to Bob there. And then we'll just go and say, so sorry, Bob, I'll look into this right away. Then we can go ahead and send that email off to Bob. It will take just a second for that email to go up and then populate in our stream and get those triggers to fire and fields to set. But if I go ahead and hit refresh now, that should be plenty of time. And so now if we come down, we'll see that email in the stream there, and we'll see our new fields on the left-hand side. So you can see the date and time of our first response here, and then right below it, the amount of time down to the minute that it actually took that response to go out.
Nice. I can totally see this setting Kelly up for success with managing her client inquiries. All right. So Kelly is also striving to get started on her clients' paper inquiries within 24 hours. She wants to know if she has any tickets that haven't been opened or work started within that time frame. And ideally, she'd love an email notification to warn the team when this happens, and a separate status for tickets that haven't been opened in 24 hours so she can spot them easily. Can you review this setup with the audience?
Yeah, no problem. We can use a trigger to update the ticket status and send out a notification to the customer service team. So I've already actually got these statuses and triggers set up. So let's go back to the type and walk through the settings. So I'll go back to settings and we'll go to the ticket types again. So for this setup, we are going to change gears just a little bit, and we're going to use the status of the ticket to indicate work has been started rather than looking for an email or activity. So before we take a look at the trigger, let's actually take a quick look at our statuses. So in this workflow, all tickets are going to be created in the new ticket status. When the client service team picks up a new ticket and starts working on it, they'll be responsible for moving that ticket into the open status. So what that means is for this trigger, we only need to look for tickets in that new ticket status for more than 24 hours. You'll see we also have a 24-hour unattended status that we can use to identify tickets that haven't been opened in time. And we'll use the trigger to change the ticket to that status once we go over 24 hours. So let's pull open the triggers tab from earlier. So I'll go to the top and go to triggers. And I'll open this 24-hour unattended notification trigger that you might have noticed in there earlier. So you'll see this is an ongoing trigger, so it doesn't require any activities to go into the rules like that event trigger we set up previously. We only want this trigger to fire once for each ticket. And our client support team doesn't want to get notifications on the weekends. So we'll only check the trigger rules Monday through Friday from 8 to 5. Moving over to the rules, we'll keep these pretty simple. Let me open up the right one. And the first rule, we'll just check the ticket status. We're going to make sure that we're only looking for tickets in that new ticket status. Once that ticket is open, we don't want this trigger to fire. The second rule here is just looking at the submitted date and making sure that it's more than 24 hours in the past. So when this trigger finds a ticket that meets these two rules, it'll perform a few actions. So let's check those out up here. The first action, we'll be sending an email to the customer service team. This is just the add or create activity action here. But clicking into it, we can take a closer look. You'll see that we are sending the email to the entire customer service user group in Accelo. So that means it'll go out to the entire team. And then you can also see I've included some key details about that ticket right in the email by copying in these merge fields on the right and adding them to the email text. These merge fields will allow you to insert bits of data that we're storing in Accelo on either the client or the ticket. So I'll go ahead and just save this one. And then going back to the actions, you'll see the second action is to update the status. That's just the change status option here. And that's just changing the status to that 24-hour unattended status for us. So pretty simple there. And then the third action, this is actually a bonus action that I added in. This is to help us report on when tickets went into the 24-hour unattended status. This action is just setting another custom date and time field that you may have noticed in there earlier when we were looking at the custom fields. This will timestamp the ticket and allow us to go back later on and easily look up all the tickets that went unattended over the last month or last year, for example. So that's all that's required to get this trigger set up. To recap, if the trigger finds any tickets that are still in the new ticket status after 24 hours, it'll send an email to the customer service team. Then it'll also update the ticket status and timestamp that ticket.
Great work, Dave. Could you now show how we could easily pull up all the tickets that are currently in the 24 hours unattended status?
Yeah, certainly. We could do that in the ticket list. So I'll go to all open tickets from our ticket menu on the left-hand side to start. Tickets and open tickets. Our ticket list has options to customize the columns that are shown. So you can change the columns, as well as filter down and change the tickets that actually get brought into the list. So to do that, let's go to configure at the top right here. And we'll want to change these filters to just pull in tickets in that 24-hour unattended status. So the first thing we can do here is clear the standing to basically just give us a list of all tickets. And then we'll want to add in that status filter. So at the top here, we can just search for status and then add that status filter to the list. And then to get more specific, let's choose that 24-hour unattended option. Once we hit apply changes, you'll see the list will update and only bring in those 24-hour unattended tickets. I'd also recommend saving this list as a shared list so anyone on the client service team can quickly access it. To do this, just go to the Save as New option at the top, and then toggle on that Share with My Team option at the bottom. We'll just call this 24-hour unattended, and we can hit Save to save that list. So now if you ever want to get back to the list, you can quickly do it right from the left-hand side and pull up your new saved 24-hour unattended list. Or if you're already in the ticket list, you'll have it in this drop-down as well. So now it'll be just a couple clicks to find all of those tickets that are currently in that 24-hour unattended status that need your attention.
Okay, nice. Now, can you show how we could easily pull up all the tickets that went 24 hours or over unattended in the last month?
Yeah, sure thing. For this, we can use that extra date field that we had get set by the trigger. So let's go back into the filters. And the first thing we'll want to do is clear this status filter because we do want to see tickets that might have already been in progress or already closed over the last month. But then let's search in our filters list for that 24-hour unattended date field. So if I just type in 24 at the top, it'll pull that right up for us. And we'll add that in. And then to look for just the tickets that this happened for in the last month, we can get a little more specific and fill in this past number of days field. So I'll just put 30 days in here. And then we can hit apply changes. You'll be able to see that the list went ahead and pulled in all the tickets that went into that 24-hour unattended status. You can see some are open, some are already closed. And then since we have that date field as a column, you can actually see the date and time it went into this status as well. So using the filters in this field, it makes reporting on your ticket history a breeze. Keep in mind that you can also export these lists with the option at the top if you want to pull the data into a spreadsheet to crunch some numbers.
All right, Dave, I've got another scenario for you. Dwight asked Kelly if he could be included on all of his account's tickets. Everyone knows Dwight is nosy, so they don't want him seeing every ticket in the system, just tickets relevant to his accounts. Can you show the audience how to use the Add Account Manager special process to handle this situation?
Yeah, for sure. For this setup to work, we would really need to turn off the view all ticket user permission for Dwight. So with this permission off, Dwight would only be able to view tickets in the system that he either was added to as the assignee of the ticket, he can be assigned a task on the ticket, or he could be added to the team of the ticket as a contributor. So Dwight doesn't want to be the assignee of these tickets since the customer service team will still take care of them. So we'll want to add him into the ticket as a contributor to the ticket team. So we do have a progression action for this that we can apply to that ticket workflow to automate this process. So for this, let's go back to our ticket type and add that in. So one last time, we'll go to settings, ticket type here. And then we'll want to add the progression action here to the available on create progression so that this happens whenever a new ticket is created. So we can find the action under the special process actions here. So I'll pick that out. And then from here, we'll want to go all the way to the bottom of this list and pick the Add Account Managers to Team option. This will ask you to pick a contributor type. So let's pick the Account Manager contributor type to clearly label Dwight's relationship with these tickets. I'll hit save on that. And that's all we really need to do to add in the progression out action. So let's go in and actually see this in action on a ticket. So I know that Dwight is the account manager for Advanced Refrigeration. So I'll add in a ticket for that company again. So let's go to add new ticket at the help at the top. And then we'll just call this ticket, please help. Let's find Advanced Refrigeration again here. And we'll leave this ticket unassigned. But, you know, as we recall, Dwight isn't the assignee. We're not sure who's getting it picked up on that customer service team, but we don't really need to fill in anything else at this point. Let's just go ahead and hit create ticket. But once that ticket's created, you'll see that Dwight was added to the ticket team on the left-hand side. So over here on the team, you can see Dwight was added and he's labeled as the account manager there. So this would give permission for Dwight to see this ticket, but really leave all the other tickets hidden. So I'd like to note that this special process and permission setup doesn't only apply to tickets. You can use it in our other products, sales, projects, and retainers. So it can really be used across the platform.
Brilliant. Dave, can you show everyone where they can update the contributor types for clearly labeling their team members on the ticket or on other work objects within Accelo?
Yeah, certainly. You can access it under the company in contact configuration settings. So let's go back to that settings menu on the bottom left there. And then we'll go up to the company in contacts menu. And that last option is for contributors. So from here, you can edit the existing contributor types, remove types, or add in new ones. So I'll add in a new one with you here. And let's call this contributor type advisor. So you can use this to quickly label anyone that you need to pull in on that ticket for advice. You'll see that contributors can have statuses available, though I usually recommend keeping it simple and turning those off. And then we also have a cool feature for auto CCing that contributor in on communications on the ticket. So you could leave this on if you want to make sure those individuals are looped in on all communications, basically giving them a copy of each email and note sent out on the ticket. So we can save that. And then, you know, using contributor types can clearly help you label the different roles on the ticket as we've seen, but they can also be used to help control that visibility into the tickets themselves.
Wow, thanks so much, Dave. We covered a lot of juicy stuff today. Now, everyone, what you've seen today are some examples as to how you can utilize Accelo to improve your current support and service operations. And these are techniques that work well for us, but each and every service business is unique and can operate in different ways. With that being said, if you've got a distinctive process or workflow that you'd like to use for managing your support or service operations, and you're curious about exploring other options that may work better for your team, then our Expert Services program might be in your future. Expert Services are consultative sessions in nature, where we take the time to listen and understand how you operate, and then present you with the best recommendations based on your use case. They're truly customized to help you solve complex business problems or optimize processes in your business. In addition to what we discussed today, some examples of what could be covered in these sessions include detailed account audits to optimize your configuration, assistance with tackling operational challenges, or advanced end user training for your team. So if you're interested in finding out more about Expert Services, you can email success@accelo.com, and one of our account managers will arrange a 30-minute, no obligation scoping call to understand your challenges and then propose recommended sessions to resolve them. You can also find out more information about this on our Success Services webpage. For reference, the website is www.accelo.com/resources/services. And we'll share this link in the chat right now for you. As a support manager, your day-to-day involves everything tickets and requests. With the tickets and service management reports in Accelo, a support manager can see all of the critical information in one screen. You can stay on top of your support team by seeing how they're performing and how they need to improve with the numerous metrics available. And these reports you see listed here on the screen are a mix of both free and paid. So if you see one that you're interested in, but don't have access to it in your system, reach out to your account manager today for a free trial of the reports license. We also have an additional resource for you today. Our host from last month's webinar and also our Director of Support, Josh Tan, published a blog post earlier this month about how to automate ticketing to fulfill service level agreements and objectives. So we highly recommend giving this a read, and we're going to share that link in the chat for you right now to the blog post. As you apply the tools, tips, and tactics from today's webinar, if you have any questions, then head to our community forum to post and connect with fellow clients. Here, you can also connect with our friendly, knowledgeable support team. The goal of the community is to provide you all with a single location where you can go to stay in the know about everything to do with Accelo, and of course, connect our customers together. In the community, we have the support forum. This is where you can ask questions and get advice from our highly trained support engineers. We also have the developer forum, and this is where you can discuss, share ideas, and ask questions about what can be done with our open API. We also have our knowledge base. This is a growing repository of help articles created by our support engineers, which you can access on your own if you ever run into anything and get stumped. And from within our community, you also have access to our help guides and our video library. So if you haven't already, head to community.accelo.com and register to be a part of the Accelo community. We also throw a bunch of fun contests and giveaways using the community, and we have one running right now. If you post a new question in our support forum before the holiday season, you'll be entered into a raffle to win some special prizes. So head to the community with your questions and stay tuned. All right, I think it's time for some Q&A. So we've seen a couple of questions come through the chat, and I'm going to pull some of them out for us to discuss. All right, Dave. One of the questions we have here is about using a trigger to reopen a ticket. So when a ticket is closed, they would like the ticket to reopen if the client emails them back, indicating that the work is not quite complete yet.
All right, yeah, we can add that in. We'll want to use an event trigger similar to that first trigger we looked at. So let's hop back over into Accelo. We'll go back to our ticket types where the trigger lives. From the type, we'll hop over to that triggers tab and we can go to add new trigger. Let's call this one, I guess, reopen ticket on client email. And so like I said, we'll want an event trigger because what's really taking us into this trigger is when that client emails. So we want that activity to take us into the rules. Unlike that trigger we created earlier, we'll have this one actually come from a contact. So it's not worried about staff communications. And we'll want to set that activity type to email again, so it wouldn't accidentally fire if they sent you a meeting invite or something. Just for reopening the ticket, we probably want that to happen really any time of day or night, as soon as that client emails in, so we can leave that alone. And then you might consider if you want this to be able to happen more than once or not. So if you talk to that client, close the ticket, they email back, reopen it, close it again, what do you want to happen that next time if they email you a third time back? So if you want it to open more than once, we can do allow to fire more than once. Maybe you want to put like a day delay in there, so you have a days in between. But if it's just once, you can leave that first option. But that's all we really need for the first page. So let's go to the rules. And for the rules, we really just need to check the status and make sure it's closed. We don't want this to fire for any open tickets or new tickets. We really just want to look for tickets in the status of closed. Don't really need any other rules for this one. So let's go over to the actions. And then the action we want when it finds a ticket that a client emailed in on that is closed, we want it to reopen it. So that's just going to be changing that status. So let's use that change status option here. And we'll change that to the open status. That's all that you really need to do for this trigger. One other thing that you might consider adding in would be like an email notification to the ticket assignee so that they make sure they see that communication. And if you were going to do that, pretty simple, just go to create that activity. And you could send it to the ticket assignee here and fill in your email warning. But that's all there really is to that ticket or to that trigger. So that'll reopen the ticket again once that client emails you back.
Awesome. Thanks, Dave. I've got another question here. So they have a custom profile field for capturing dates, but how come that's not showing up as an option to include in a formula?
Yeah, that's a great question. So our formula fields, you'll notice they're only available as custom fields. We do have a few different types of fields in the system. We have custom profile fields and custom fields. Custom profile fields, you can set a field up to be across all ticket types. You can also have those fields be available to projects, sales, companies in the system. Custom fields, on the other hand, are specific to a type. So you might have different custom fields on different ticket types. You also probably have different fields from your projects and sales and stuff. We only have the formula field option available as a custom field. And because it lives in that custom field section, we'll only be able to pull in other custom fields. So unfortunately, those custom profile fields won't show up as an option in your formulas here. It'll just be any that you've added specifically to that type. So we'll see those two options that I had previously added as a custom field available. So probably just want to go back and recreate that as a custom field.
Nice. And this is a good one as well. Can you set up a trigger that would send a customer satisfaction survey when a project is complete, or say when a retainer is auto-renewed?
Yeah, you could use a trigger for that as well. So let's, I guess, use the example for projects. I'll just pop up to projects here, go to types, just like we were looking at for tickets. You could use a trigger for it. Really, though, I'd probably recommend putting it right into your complete progression. So you don't rely on Accelo looking for projects. It's just going out as soon as you hit complete on that project. But you really could do it in either scenario. I'd suggest adding it into this progression when you go to complete. You can go to create activity. And then type in your text. If you had a link to the survey, if it was in a different tool, you can, if it's one link that you put for every client, then you could always just paste it right into the body of the email here. If it was a link that was unique for each client, then you might consider adding in a custom field for that on the ticket or on the project in this case. So you might have a new custom field here for your survey link, and make that just a hyperlink field. And then once that's saved, we could actually put that into that email. So you would add that link to each individual project. And then if we came back here and went to create activity again, we'll see that option as a merge field we could use. So over here on the right, we go down, there's that survey link field that we just added. So you could just make sure to include that in this activity that's going out to the client. You could also do it from a trigger, like I said, be a pretty simple trigger setup. You just say, hey, if the status is complete, then send this email. So not a whole lot to that one either.
Awesome. I've got another one here for you. What's the difference between the different types of formula custom fields?
Yeah, let's take a closer look at that. We have 3 different types of fields. So I'll actually pull it up here in the list. So we go to new field here and go to the formula options. We have 3 different types. We have formula time, formula number, and formula date. Each of these, in parentheses, that's referring to the format that number is going to come out as when the formula is over. So the formula time field, we looked at that earlier. That's giving you an amount of time in days, hours, and minutes. The formula number field is just giving you a number. So when you're actually subtracting dates like we saw, that's just going to give you a number of days. But you could also use it to do 2 + 2 = 4 kind of thing. And then formula date, that's going to actually return a date in the system. So you might do something like, let's make this equal the submitted day plus 2 to always return the date of 2 days after it was submitted. Maybe that's your reply by date or something. So really just dependent on what value you're looking to get out of the formula.
Very cool. Thank you for that insight, Dave. Well, everyone, this brings us to the end of our Spooktacular live training webinar. I hope this was helpful for you all. And any questions that we didn't get to in the Q&A channel will be answered via email as soon as possible. I'd like to say thank you to everyone for joining us today. And for those of you who joined us a little bit late due to the link issue, apologies, but don't worry, we'll be sending you the complete video recording, or feel free to join us again this afternoon for our second session. Along with the video recording that we'll send out to everyone, there'll be a feedback survey. And this feedback survey will also pop up after the webinar ends. Within the survey, you can include topic areas that you'd like to see us cover in future webinars. We have a number of topics already planned for future sessions, and we're getting ramped up for 2022. But we'd really like to hear from you to understand the challenges that you might be going through. And that's so we can tackle these topics together in other sessions. You'll be receiving an invitation to these future webinars, and this recording will also be available on our website in the video tutorials library. That's all I have for today. Happy Halloween, everyone, and take it easy. I'll see you soon. Bye.
See ya.